I stand in my sister Amanda's driveway, still reeling from what just happened. My brother-in-law Derek had just called me a worthless F.T. after I politely declined to babysit 6-year-old Emma for the 4th weekend in a row. The words echo in my mind as Derek's truck disappears down the street. My hands shake with rage and humiliation. 3 years of helping this family. 3 years of being the reliable uncle. And this is what I get. I pull out my phone, knowing my life is about to change forever. The suburban neighborhood around me feels suddenly foreign, like I'm seeing it through different eyes. The manicured lawns and white picket fences that once represented family stability now seem like a facade hiding something rotten underneath. My chest burns with the sting of betrayal, and I can barely process what Derek just said to me. The man I've helped, supported, and treated like a brother for years just revealed his true colors in the most vicious way possible. I look back at the house where I've spent countless weekends, where I've read Emma bedtime stories and helped her with homework, where I thought I was part of a loving family. The windows stare back at me like empty eyes, and I realize that everything I believed about my place in this family was built on lies. Derek's words weren't just a momentary outburst of anger. They came from a place of deep-seated hatred that he's been hiding behind fake smiles and grateful handshakes. The weight of this moment settles over me like a heavy blanket. I know that what happens next will define not just my relationship with Derek, but my entire future with Amanda and Emma. As I scroll through my phone contacts, trying to decide who to call first, I can feel the foundation of my world shifting beneath my feet. This isn't just about babysitting anymore. This is about respect, dignity, and family loyalty. And I'm about to find out just how deep this betrayal really goes. 8 months ago, when I lost my marketing position at Henderson & Associates due to company downsizing, I never imagined it would lead me to this moment. The layoffs had been brutal, affecting nearly 30% of the workforce, and despite my 5 years of solid performance, I found myself among the casualties. The severance package was decent enough to cover a few months of expenses, but in a competitive job market, those months stretched longer than expected. During this difficult period, Amanda became my lifeline in more ways than one. She had been working double shifts as a registered nurse at St. Mary's Hospital, often pulling 16-hour days to make ends meet while Derek's construction business struggled with seasonal slowdowns. When she mentioned needing reliable childcare for Emma, I volunteered without hesitation. It seemed like the perfect arrangement. I had flexibility in my schedule. Emma was an absolute joy to be around, and I could help my sister during a tough time while feeling useful despite my unemployment. Those early weeks of babysitting felt like a blessing in disguise. Emma and I developed an incredible bond, building elaborate Lego castles, having dance parties in the living room, and reading every book in her collection at least twice. I found myself looking forward to our time together, often arriving early and staying late just to help with dinner or bedtime routines. When Amanda worked weekend shifts, I would take Emma to the park, the children's museum, or simply spend quiet afternoons teaching her to paint watercolors. The arrangement quickly became routine. Derek would drop Emma off at my apartment on Friday evenings, and I would keep her until Sunday night when Amanda returned from her hospital shifts. Sometimes Derek would call with last-minute requests, asking if I could watch Emma on weekday evenings when he claimed to be working late on big commercial projects. I always said yes, rearranging job interviews and networking events to accommodate their needs. I remember one particular evening when Derek picked Emma up, exhausted and covered in what looked like concrete dust. He shook my hand firmly and said, "Henry, I don't know what we'd do without you. You're saving our family right now." Those words meant everything to me. I felt like I was contributing, like I was making a real difference in their lives during a challenging period. But there were sacrifices I made that I never mentioned to anyone. I turned down a promising networking event with former colleagues because Emma had a fever and needed extra attention. I postponed following up on job leads because Derek's projects kept running late, leaving me with Emma past the usual pickup times. I spent nearly $200 of my dwindling savings on Emma's birthday party supplies when Derek mentioned money was tight. I bought her new school clothes when Amanda worked too many hours to go shopping. The most painful sacrifice came 3 weeks ago when I had to decline a dinner date with someone I had been interested in for months. Marcus Chen had asked me out after we met at a coffee shop, and I was genuinely excited about the possibility of dating again after my recent breakup. But Derek called that same afternoon, claiming he had an emergency client meeting and needed me to watch Emma. I chose family loyalty over personal happiness, as I always did. Last month, I started noticing subtle changes in Amanda's behavior toward me. She seemed less grateful and more demanding when discussing Emma's care. Her thank you texts became shorter and less frequent. When I mentioned applying for positions that might require evening work, she quickly reminded me how much they depended on my availability. I brushed off these concerns, attributing her attitude to work stress and financial pressure. Then came the text message that shattered everything I believed about our arrangement. It arrived last Tuesday while I was preparing lunch for Emma, who was homesick from school. Amanda's message was cold and accusatory. "Derek told me you've been asking for payment for watching Emma. I'm disappointed that you're trying to profit from our family situation when you know we're struggling. We thought you were helping out of love, not looking for a paycheck." I stared at the message for several minutes, reading it over and over, unable to comprehend what I was seeing. I had never, not once, asked for payment, or even suggested that I should be compensated for watching Emma. The accusation was so far from reality that I initially thought Amanda was joking, or had sent the message to the wrong person. I immediately called her, but the conversation went worse than I could have imagined. Amanda's voice was strained and disappointed, as she explained that Derek had been telling her for weeks about my apparent demands for money. According to her, Derek claimed I had been dropping hints about needing payment, suggesting that my time was valuable and that other families paid their babysitters. The more Amanda talked, the clearer it became that Derek had been systematically poisoning her against me. He had twisted innocent conversations, fabricated requests for money, and created an entirely false narrative about my motivations for helping their family. When I tried to defend myself, Amanda's responses made it obvious that Derek's version of events was deeply ingrained in her mind. The betrayal cut deeper than losing my job ever had. This wasn't just about money or misunderstanding. This was about trust, family bonds, and the realization that someone I had considered a brother had been deliberately sabotaging my relationship with my sister. As I hung up the phone that day, I knew that Derek's manipulation was far more calculated and malicious than a simple miscommunication. The following days felt like walking through a minefield. Every conversation with Amanda became tense and awkward, filled with underlying accusations and unspoken resentment. She began questioning my every action and motive, asking why I had bought Emma certain gifts or why I had taken her to particular places. The natural, loving relationship we had always shared was replaced by suspicious scrutiny that made me feel like a stranger in my own family. I tried explaining the truth multiple times, providing specific details about conversations and events that contradicted Derek's version of events. I reminded Amanda of times when Derek had thanked me personally for helping without any mention of payment. I pointed out that I had actually spent my own money on Emma's needs repeatedly, but Derek's manipulation had been so thorough and consistent that Amanda seemed incapable of believing my side of the story. The emotional toll became unbearable. I found myself dreading family interactions that had once been the highlight of my week. Emma, sensing the tension between her mother and me, began asking innocent questions about why I seemed sad or why Mommy acted differently when talking about me. Watching this beautiful, loving child become confused by adult conflicts that she couldn't understand broke my heart in ways I hadn't expected. After 2 weeks of this toxic dynamic, I made the difficult decision to step back from babysitting entirely. I called Amanda on a Sunday evening and explained that I needed to focus completely on my job search and couldn't maintain the same level of availability for childcare. The conversation was brief and cold, with Amanda simply saying she understood and would make other arrangements. The relief I expected from removing myself from the situation never came. Instead, I felt isolated and lost, cut off from the family connections that had sustained me during unemployment. Emma called my phone twice, asking when she would see me again. Conversations that left me fighting back tears after hearing the confusion in her young voice. But stepping away from the babysitting arrangement gave me something I hadn't had in months: uninterrupted time to focus on my career. I updated my resume, reached out to former colleagues, and began applying to positions with renewed energy. The breakthrough came faster than I had hoped when Jennifer Walsh from Pinnacle Marketing Solutions called me for a phone interview. Jennifer had worked with me briefly 3 years earlier on a cross-company project and remembered my campaign strategies for their retail client. Pinnacle was expanding their digital marketing division and needed someone with my background in consumer behavior analysis. The phone interview went exceptionally well, and she scheduled me for a final in-person interview with the senior partners for the following Thursday morning. I spent the entire week preparing for what could be the turning point in my professional life. I researched every aspect of Pinnacle's business model, prepared detailed responses to potential questions, and even bought a new suit to ensure I made the best possible impression. This wasn't just a job interview. It was my chance to rebuild my career and regain the financial independence that unemployment had stripped away. The night before the interview, I was reviewing my notes and practicing responses when my phone rang. Derek's name appeared on the screen, and I considered not answering, given the recent tensions and his role in poisoning Amanda against me. But something in the timing felt urgent, so I picked up the call. Derek's voice was different than I had heard before. He sounded genuinely remorseful, and almost pleading, as he explained that Amanda was scheduled for a critical double shift at the hospital due to another nurse calling in sick. Their regular backup childcare had fallen through, and he claimed to have an emergency meeting with potential investors that could save his struggling construction business. "Henry, I know things have been weird lately, and I want to apologize for any misunderstandings," Derek said, his voice thick with what sounded like genuine emotion. "Amanda told me about the money situation, and I think we all just got our wires crossed during a stressful time. This meeting tomorrow could literally save our business and our family's financial future. I'm begging you to help us one more time." Against every instinct, and despite my anger about the false accusations, I found myself agreeing to watch Emma. Family loyalty ran deeper than personal grievances, and the thought of Derek's business failing while I could have helped felt wrong. I told Derek I could take Emma from 7 in the morning until 6 in the evening, which would cover both Amanda's shift and his important meeting. Derek seemed genuinely grateful, promising that this would be a temporary solution and that they would find permanent childcare arrangements soon. He even mentioned that he wanted to sit down with me and Amanda after his business situation stabilized to clear up all the recent misunderstandings. For the first time in weeks, I felt like maybe the family relationships could be repaired. I went to bed that night feeling cautiously optimistic about two major developments: landing the job at Pinnacle and potentially healing the rift in my family. The interview was scheduled for 10 in the morning, giving me enough time to get Emma settled and comfortable before heading downtown to Pinnacle's offices. Emma arrived at 7 sharp, excited to spend the day with me, and chattering about a school project she wanted to show me. We had breakfast together, and I helped her with some homework before settling her in with coloring books and educational videos. At 9:30, I called my neighbor Mrs. Patterson to come sit with Emma for 2 hours, while I attended the interview. I arrived at Pinnacle 15 minutes early, feeling confident and prepared. The interview began perfectly, with the senior partners impressed by my portfolio and strategic thinking. We were discussing potential start dates and salary ranges when my phone began buzzing repeatedly in my jacket pocket. I ignored the first few calls, but the persistent ringing became disruptive enough that I apologized and asked for a brief moment to ensure there wasn't an emergency. The notification screen showed 17 missed calls and over 30 text messages, all from various numbers I didn't recognize immediately. My hands started shaking as I opened the first message, which contained a link to Derek's Facebook page with a note saying, "Is this about you?" The Facebook post was devastating and public, visible to Derek's 800 friends, and shared multiple times already. The post contained photos of Emma at a local park, with a long caption describing how I had abandoned her there and fled when confronted about inappropriate behavior. Derek's post painted me as an unstable and dangerous person who should never be trusted around children, and warned other parents to be aware of predators in our community. Reading the post while sitting in Pinnacle's conference room felt like experiencing a nightmare in slow motion. Derek had somehow taken innocent photos from our previous park visits and crafted a narrative that portrayed me as a threat to child safety. The post was already generating dozens of comments from people expressing shock and outrage, many of whom I recognized from the neighborhood. I excused myself from the interview, claiming a family emergency, and rushed home to find Emma safe with Mrs. Patterson, completely unaware of the social media storm brewing around us. The relief of seeing her safe was immediately overshadowed by the realization that Derek's attack on my character was strategic, public, and designed to destroy any credibility I might have in defending myself against his previous lies. The drive home from Pinnacle felt surreal, like traveling through a world that had fundamentally changed in the span of 2 hours. My phone continued buzzing with notifications, messages, and calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Each red light gave me time to glimpse more comments on Derek's post, and the pile-on effect was already in full swing. Neighbors, acquaintances, and complete strangers were sharing their outrage and promising to spread the word about my alleged behavior. Mrs. Patterson met me at the door with a concerned expression, explaining that several people had called my landline, asking about Emma's safety and whether she was still in my care. The sweet elderly woman, who had watched Emma dozens of times, was now looking at me with uncertainty, clearly shaken by whatever she had heard from these callers. As I thanked Mrs. Patterson and sent her home, my phone rang with a call from Jennifer Walsh at Pinnacle. Her voice was professional but distinctly cold as she explained that the company had become aware of serious allegations related to my character and would need to postpone any hiring decisions pending resolution of these concerns. She didn't explicitly mention Derek's post, but the timing made the connection obvious. The devastation of losing this career opportunity hit me harder than I expected. This wasn't just about one job. It was about my professional reputation in an industry where trust and character references were essential. Derek's post had effectively sabotaged my ability to rebuild my career, and the public nature of his accusations meant that any potential employer could easily discover the allegations with a simple Google search of my name. Emma spent the afternoon blissfully unaware of the chaos swirling around her. We worked on her school project about butterflies, and she chattered excitedly about wanting to visit the butterfly garden at the nature center. Watching her innocent enthusiasm while knowing that her father was systematically destroying my life felt like experiencing cognitive dissonance on a profound level. The evening brought a parade of phone calls from friends and acquaintances who had seen Derek's post. Some called to express disbelief and offer support, but others seemed to be fishing for information or details about the allegations. I quickly learned to recognize the difference between genuine concern and morbid curiosity, and it was disturbing how many people fell into the latter category. The most heartbreaking call came from my former colleague Michael Rodriguez, who had been planning to recommend me for a position at his company. Michael's voice was carefully neutral, as he explained that he couldn't move forward with any recommendations given the current situation. He advised me to resolve the allegations quickly and completely before pursuing any new opportunities. That night, after returning Emma to Amanda, I began researching Derek's background more thoroughly than I ever had before. What I discovered painted a picture of a man whose public persona differed dramatically from his private character. Social media posts showed Derek presenting himself as a devoted family man and successful businessman, but a deeper investigation revealed inconsistencies and troubling patterns. I found several negative reviews of Derek's construction company that mentioned unprofessional behavior, missed deadlines, and questionable business practices. Former clients described projects that went significantly over budget and timelines that seemed designed to maximize Derek's profit rather than deliver quality work. One review specifically mentioned Derek being dishonest about material costs and creating fake emergencies to justify price increases. The most illuminating discovery came through a mutual acquaintance, Jake Morrison, who had worked briefly with Derek's construction crew 2 years earlier. When I called Jake to ask about Derek's character, Jake's immediate response was telling, "Henry, I've been wondering when someone would finally see through that guy's act." Jake explained that Derek had a reputation among local contractors for being unreliable and manipulative. He described instances where Derek had blamed crew members for his own mistakes, created conflicts between workers to avoid taking responsibility for project delays, and consistently portrayed himself as the victim in business disputes. More significantly, Jake revealed that Derek had been having an affair with Sarah Martinez, the wife of his business partner, Marcus Martinez. The affair had been going on for at least 8 months, with Derek using his construction projects as cover for meetings with Sarah at various hotels and locations around town. This revelation reframed everything Derek had done to me in a new context. His manipulation of Amanda's perception, his systematic campaign to discredit me, and even his social media attack suddenly made sense as the actions of a man desperately trying to deflect attention from his own misconduct. By painting me as untrustworthy and dangerous, Derek was creating insurance against the possibility that someone might discover his affair and question his alibis. The affair explained Derek's frequent requests for me to babysit during his alleged emergency work meetings. While I was caring for Emma, Derek was meeting Sarah at hotels, using his family responsibilities as cover for infidelity. The irony was bitter. I had been enabling Derek's betrayal of Amanda by providing the childcare that gave him freedom to cheat. Jake also mentioned that other people in the construction community had noticed Derek's suspicious behavior and inconsistent stories about his whereabouts during business hours. The affair wasn't as secret as Derek believed, and several people had been questioning his integrity and reliability in both personal and professional contexts. Armed with this new understanding of Derek's motivation, I began connecting dots that had previously seemed random. Derek's hostility toward me wasn't just about control or manipulation. It was about protecting his affair and maintaining his false image as a devoted family man. By discrediting me preemptively, he was ensuring that any future accusations I might make would be dismissed as the revenge of a disgruntled and unstable person. The next morning brought another devastating blow. Amanda called early, her voice filled with disappointment and anger as she explained that she had spoken with Derek about the previous day's events. According to Derek's version, I had abandoned Emma at the park when confronted by concerned parents about my behavior around children, and he had been forced to leave his crucial business meeting to collect Emma and ensure her safety. Amanda's willingness to believe Derek's increasingly elaborate lies felt like the final betrayal. Despite knowing me for my entire life, despite years of witnessing my genuine love and care for Emma, she was choosing to trust the word of a man who was systematically lying to her about every aspect of his life. The conversation ended with Amanda informing me that I would no longer be welcome in their home, and that any future contact with Emma would need to be supervised. The legal implications of her words weren't lost on me. Derek's social media post combined with these restrictions essentially branded me as a threat to child safety in the eyes of anyone who knew our family. As I hung up the phone, I realized that Derek's strategy was working perfectly. He had successfully isolated me from my family, destroyed my professional prospects, and created a public narrative that painted me as the villain in a story where I was actually the victim. The helplessness and rage I felt in that moment were unlike anything I had experienced before. But Jake's revelation about Derek's affair had also given me something crucial: the truth about Derek's real character and motivation. If Derek was capable of such elaborate deception in his personal life, then his claims about me were almost certainly fabricated. The question was whether I could prove Derek's lies before his character assassination campaign destroyed me completely. The decision to investigate Derek's affair wasn't driven by revenge, but by a desperate need to understand the full scope of his deception and find evidence that might clear my name. I spent the following days carefully documenting what I knew and developing a plan to gather concrete proof of Derek's misconduct. My first breakthrough came through social media analysis. By examining Derek's Facebook and Instagram posts over the past 8 months, I noticed patterns that correlated with his babysitting requests. On dates when he had asked me to watch Emma for emergency work meetings, Derek's location data and photo timestamps revealed that he was nowhere near construction sites or business meetings. One particularly damning example was from 6 weeks earlier, when Derek had called me frantically claiming he needed to meet with potential investors at a downtown restaurant to save his business. That same evening, Derek had posted Instagram photos from a upscale hotel bar 30 miles away, tagged with Sarah Martinez and captioned celebrating new partnerships. The timeline proved that Derek had lied about both the nature and location of his meeting while I was caring for his daughter. I began cross-referencing Derek's construction project schedules with his social media activity and discovered numerous inconsistencies. Projects that Derek claimed required his immediate attention often coincided with social media posts showing him at locations completely unrelated to work. The pattern was so consistent that it painted a clear picture of Derek using fake business emergencies to justify time away from home. The financial aspect of Derek's deception became apparent when I remembered Amanda's recent stress about their family finances. She had mentioned several times that Derek's construction business was struggling with slow periods and delayed payments from clients. But Derek's social media showed expensive dinners, hotel stays, and gifts that seemed incompatible with the financial struggles he was describing to Amanda. A deeper investigation into public records revealed that Derek's construction company had actually been quite successful over the past year, securing several large commercial contracts that should have provided substantial income. The disconnect between Derek's actual business success and the financial struggles he described to Amanda suggested that money was being diverted somewhere else. I reached out to Michael Santos, a friend who worked in accounting, and asked for guidance on how to identify signs of financial misconduct. Michael explained that affair-related expenses often created unusual patterns in personal and business finances, particularly when someone was trying to hide significant expenditures from their spouse. The most significant breakthrough came when I remembered something Emma had said during one of our afternoons together 3 weeks earlier. She had been drawing pictures and casually mentioned that she had met Daddy's work friend Sarah during what was supposed to be a father-daughter trip to the zoo. At the time, I had assumed Sarah was simply another contractor or business associate who had joined them for part of the day. But when I asked Emma more specific questions during our next visit, her innocent descriptions revealed a much more troubling picture. Emma described multiple occasions when Derek had brought her along to meet Sarah, usually at restaurants or parks rather than construction sites. She mentioned that Sarah gave her gifts, and that Daddy seemed extra happy when Sarah was around. The realization that Derek had been bringing Emma to his affair meetings was deeply disturbing. Not only was he betraying Amanda and deceiving his family, but he was also exposing his 6-year-old daughter to inappropriate adult situations and using her as cover for his infidelity. Emma was being manipulated and potentially traumatized by being made an unwitting participant in her father's lies. Emma's descriptions also provided specific details that I could verify. She mentioned a restaurant with fish tanks and boats that matched the decor of Marina Bay Seafood, where Derek had posted photos with Sarah. She described a park with really big playground and purple flowers that corresponded to Riverside Park, where Derek and Sarah had been photographed together multiple times. The evidence of Derek's systematic deception was mounting, but I needed more concrete proof that would be taken seriously by Amanda and potentially by legal authorities. The social media posts and Emma's innocent revelations provided a foundation, but I needed documentation that couldn't be dismissed as coincidence or misinterpretation. My opportunity came when Derek made another request for babysitting, this time claiming he had an urgent meeting with a potential client who was only available during evening hours. Based on the pattern I had identified, I suspected this was another cover story for meeting Sarah. Instead of simply agreeing to watch Emma, I told Derek I could help but needed him to drop her off at the Children's Museum, where I was planning to take her for an educational evening program. Derek seemed hesitant but ultimately agreed when I explained that the program was free and Emma would enjoy the interactive exhibits. What Derek didn't realize was that the Children's Museum had extensive security cameras throughout the facility, and I had contacted them in advance to inform them about potential safety concerns related to Emma's pickup arrangements. I wanted documented proof of Derek's whereabouts and behavior during his supposed business meeting. The evening played out exactly as I had predicted. Derek dropped Emma off at the museum at 5 o'clock, claiming he would return by 8 after his client meeting. Emma was excited about the dinosaur exhibit and spent the early evening learning about fossil formation and prehistoric ecosystems. At 7:30, Derek called to say his meeting was running late and asked if I could keep Emma until 9:30. While Emma and I explored the space exhibit, I received a text message from Jake Morrison containing photos he had taken at Marina Bay Seafood. The photos clearly showed Derek and Sarah having an intimate dinner, holding hands across the table and sharing what appeared to be a very romantic meal. The timestamp on Jake's photos was 8:15, exactly when Derek was supposed to be in his crucial client meeting. The documentation was perfect. Derek's own request for babysitting, his specific claims about the client meeting, Emma's presence at a location with security cameras, and photographic evidence of Derek's actual activities during the time in question. But the revelation that disturbed me most was still to come. When Derek finally arrived to collect Emma at 9:45, nearly an hour later than promised, he was clearly agitated and defensive. Emma ran to him excitedly, chattering about everything she had learned about dinosaurs and space. But Derek seemed distracted and anxious, barely listening to her enthusiasm and rushing to leave the museum. As we walked toward the exit, Emma innocently mentioned that she hoped she could see Sarah again soon because she's really nice and always brings me presents. Derek's face went pale, and he quickly tried to shush Emma, but the damage was already done. In front of museum security cameras, and within earshot of several families, Derek's 6-year-old daughter had inadvertently revealed that his affair partner was someone she knew well and spent time with regularly. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Derek wasn't just cheating on Amanda and lying about his whereabouts. He was regularly bringing Emma to his affair meetings, exposing her to adult situations she couldn't understand, and teaching her to keep secrets from her mother. The level of manipulation and the potential psychological damage to Emma transformed my anger into something much deeper and more protective. Derek's final words to me that evening confirmed everything I had suspected about his character and motivation. As we stood in the museum parking lot, he looked directly at me and said, "You know, Henry, Some people might find it weird how much time you want to spend with other people's kids. Good thing Emma's family knows she's safe with us. The threat was clear and chilling. Derek was warning me that any attempt to expose his behavior would be met with escalated accusations about my own character. He was using Emma and my genuine love for her as weapons against me, confident that I wouldn't risk her well-being to protect myself. But Derek had miscalculated something crucial. His threat revealed that he saw Emma not as a beloved daughter to protect, but as a tool to manipulate and control the adults around him. That realization crystallized my resolve to document everything I had discovered and find a way to protect Emma from her father's toxic behavior, regardless of the personal cost to me. The evidence was mounting, but I knew that Derek's next move would be to escalate his attacks on my character before I could expose the truth about his conduct. The social media post had been just the beginning of his campaign to discredit me, and I needed to be prepared for whatever false allegations he might fabricate next. The weight of everything I had discovered about Derek's deception felt crushing as I tried to decide on the best course of action. Every option seemed fraught with risks, particularly to Emma's well-being and my relationship with Amanda. The evidence I had gathered was substantial, but presenting it meant potentially destroying Amanda's marriage and exposing Emma to the trauma of her parents' divorce. I spent sleepless nights weighing the moral implications of my situation. On one hand, Amanda deserved to know the truth about Derek's affair and financial deception. She was working exhausting double shifts, believing that Derek was struggling to save their business, while he was actually spending money on hotels and expensive dinners with another woman. The betrayal was profound and ongoing, affecting every aspect of their family's life. On the other hand, exposing Derek meant admitting that I had been investigating my brother-in-law and potentially appearing vindictive or manipulative myself. Given Derek's successful campaign to poison Amanda against me, there was a real possibility that she would view my evidence as fabricated revenge rather than genuine concern for her well-being. The most troubling aspect was the impact on Emma. Despite Derek's manipulation and poor judgment in bringing her to his affair meetings, he was still her father and she loved him deeply. Destroying her parents' marriage would traumatize Emma in ways that might affect her for years to come. Yet allowing Derek's behavior to continue meant enabling ongoing deception and potential psychological harm from his use of Emma as cover for infidelity. For 3 days, I wrestled with these competing concerns while continuing to document Derek's activities and behavior patterns. I created detailed timelines, organized photographic evidence, and prepared a comprehensive report of everything I had discovered. But I still hadn't decided whether to present this information to Amanda or seek legal advice about the potential implications. The decision was taken out of my hands when Derek escalated his attack on my character in a way that exceeded even my worst expectations. I was at home on Wednesday evening, researching potential lawyers who might advise me on defamation and character assassination, when my doorbell rang at 8:30. 2 police officers stood on my front porch, their expressions serious and professional as they asked if I was Henry Mitchell. Detective Patricia Moore introduced herself and her partner, explaining that they needed to discuss some allegations that had been made about my conduct with a minor child. The formal police interview was simultaneously terrifying and surreal. Detective Moore explained that Derek had filed a report claiming I had been stalking his family and making inappropriate contact with his daughter despite being asked to stay away. According to Derek's statement, I had been driving past their house repeatedly, attempting to contact Emma through her school, and making threats against Derek when confronted about my behavior. The allegations were so far from reality that I initially wondered if there had been some kind of mistranslation or clerical error. Detective Moore patiently read Derek's statement aloud, detailing supposed incidents of stalking behavior that I could prove had never occurred. Derek claimed I had followed him to work sites, confronted him at restaurants, and even attempted to take Emma from school without authorization. When Detective Moore asked for my response to these allegations, I felt the ground shifting beneath my feet once again. Derek had crafted a narrative that portrayed every legitimate interaction I'd had with their family as evidence of obsessive or predatory behavior. My regular visits to Amanda's house became stalking, my babysitting arrangements became inappropriate contact, and my attempts to clear my name became threats and harassment. The most devastating aspect of Derek's police report was how he had twisted Emma's innocent comments about missing me and wanting to see me. According to Derek's statement, Emma had been coached by me to make these requests and was displaying signs of inappropriate attachment that concerned both parents. Derek claimed that Emma had been having nightmares and behavioral problems since their family had tried to limit my contact with her. Detective Moore's questioning was thorough and professional, but I could sense her skepticism about some aspects of Derek's claims. When she asked for specific dates and times of the alleged stalking incidents, I was able to provide documentary evidence proving I had been elsewhere during several of the supposed encounters. Cell phone records, credit card transactions, and witness statements contradicted multiple elements of Derek's story. The interview took nearly 2 hours, during which I provided Detective Moore with a complete timeline of my relationship with Derek's family and detailed explanations of the recent conflicts. I explained about Derek's false accusations regarding payment for babysitting, the social media posts that had damaged my reputation, and my belief that Derek was manufacturing these allegations to cover his own misconduct. Detective Moore listened carefully to my explanations but remained professionally neutral about the competing narratives. She explained that the investigation would continue and advised me to avoid any contact with Derek's family while the matter was being resolved. The legal implications were clear. Derek had successfully weaponized the criminal justice system to isolate me from Amanda and Emma, while positioning himself as the protective father defending his family from a dangerous predator. The ride to the police station for formal questioning the next morning felt like a journey into an alternate reality, where everything I knew about myself and my family had been inverted. Derek's accusations were so systematic and detailed that they clearly represented hours of preparation and planning rather than spontaneous complaints about concerning behavior. But Derek's elaborate lies contained a fatal flaw that became apparent during the formal interview process. Detective Moore had thoroughly researched the timestamps and locations mentioned in Derek's police report, and several of his claims about my alleged stalking behavior contained impossible elements. According to Derek's statement, I had supposedly followed him to a construction site in Riverside County and confronted him during a client meeting on the previous Tuesday afternoon. But Derek's social media post from that same day showed him having lunch with Sarah Martinez at a downtown restaurant, 30 miles away from the construction site he claimed to be working on. Detective Moore presented this contradiction during my second interview, explaining that Derek's location data and social media activity directly contradicted his sworn statement about his whereabouts during the alleged stalking incident. The detective's tone had shifted from skeptical neutrality to genuine curiosity about why Derek would fabricate such easily disproven claims. More importantly, Detective Moore revealed that Derek's complaints weren't the first concerns that had been raised about his behavior. The detective explained that Derek had been the subject of previous reports from other parents at Emma's school related to inappropriate comments and boundary violations during school events. 2 mothers had separately reported that Derek had made them uncomfortable with overly personal questions about their children and invasive comments about their family situations. A teacher had noted that Derek seemed to show up at school events more frequently than most parents, and often stayed longer than necessary, engaging in conversations that made school staff uncomfortable. Detective Moore also mentioned that Derek's construction company had been investigated for potential fraud related to a municipal contract, though no charges had been filed due to insufficient evidence. The pattern that emerged was of a man whose public facade masked questionable judgment and problematic behavior in multiple contexts. The revelation that Derek was already under suspicion by school officials and other parents reframed his accusations against me in an entirely different light. Rather than being the protective father defending his family from a genuine threat, Derek appeared to be a manipulative person deflecting attention from his own misconduct by creating false accusations against someone else. Detective Moore's final revelation was the most stunning of all. During the investigation of Derek's claims, the police had discovered that Derek's social media post about me abandoning Emma at the park contained fabricated screenshots and doctored photographs. Digital forensics had revealed that Derek had manipulated timestamps and created fake text message conversations to support his narrative about my alleged misconduct. The discovery of Derek's fabricated evidence transformed the investigation from an inquiry into my supposed stalking behavior into a criminal investigation of Derek's false reporting and potential fraud. Detective Moore explained that filing false police reports was a serious offense, particularly when it involved allegations related to child safety. As I left the police station that afternoon, I felt a mixture of vindication and exhaustion. Derek's web of lies was finally unraveling, but the damage to my reputation and relationships had already been substantial. The question now was whether the truth would emerge soon enough to repair the harm Derek had caused to my family relationships and professional prospects. Armed with Detective Moore's revelations about Derek's fabricated evidence and the ongoing police investigation into his false reporting, I finally felt equipped to approach Amanda with the truth about her husband's systematic deception. The decision to confront her wasn't easy, knowing that the information would devastate her world, but Emma's safety and well-being had become my primary concern. I called Amanda on Saturday morning and asked if we could meet privately to discuss serious concerns about Derek's behavior. My tone must have conveyed the gravity of the situation because Amanda agreed to meet me at Riverside Park, away from her house and Derek's potential interference. The park held special meaning for our family, as it was where we had spent countless childhood afternoons and where I had recently taken Emma during our babysitting adventures. The conversation began with Amanda's defensive posture and clear skepticism about anything I might say regarding Derek. She immediately reminded me about the police investigation and Derek's allegations, positioning herself as the protective mother who wouldn't allow anyone to harm her family. But as I began presenting the evidence systematically, starting with the timeline inconsistencies and social media contradictions, I watched Amanda's certainty begin to crack. The photographic evidence of Derek's affair was devastating but undeniable. Jake Morrison's pictures from Marina Bay Seafood showed Derek and Sarah in intimate poses, during the exact time Derek had claimed to be in crucial business meetings. When I showed Amanda Derek's own Instagram posts from expensive hotels and restaurants, during times when he had told her he was working late on job sites, the pattern of deception became impossible to ignore. Amanda's reaction progressed through several stages: initial denial, desperate attempts to find alternative explanations, and finally a heartbroken recognition that the evidence was overwhelming. The moment that shattered her remaining defenses was when I played a recording of Emma's innocent descriptions of meeting Daddy's work friend Sarah and receiving gifts during their supposed father-daughter outings. "He's been using Emma," Amanda whispered, her voice breaking as the full implications became clear. "He's been taking our daughter to his affair meetings and teaching her to lie to me about it." I explained Detective Moore's findings about Derek's fabricated social media posts and false police reports, emphasizing that Derek's attacks on my character were part of a larger pattern of manipulation and deception. Amanda listened with growing horror as I described how Derek had systematically poisoned her against me to deflect attention from his own misconduct and ensure that any future accusations would be dismissed. The financial evidence was equally damning. Bank records that I had helped Amanda access showed Derek withdrawing substantial amounts of cash during times when he claimed the business was struggling. Credit card statements revealed expensive purchases and hotel stays that corresponded with his social media posts with Sarah, expenses that Derek had hidden from Amanda, while claiming they needed to cut household costs. Amanda's devastation was painful to witness, but I also saw the emergence of a fierce protective instinct as she processed the implications for Emma's well-being. The realization that Derek had been exposing Emma to inappropriate adult situations and using her as cover for infidelity triggered Amanda's maternal rage in ways that the affair itself hadn't. "What kind of father does that to his own child?" Amanda asked, her voice filled with disgust and determination. "Emma doesn't deserve to be manipulated and confused by Derek's lies." By the end of our 3-hour conversation, Amanda had decided to confront Derek immediately and file for divorce and full custody of Emma. She asked me to accompany her to a lawyer's office the following Monday to provide testimony and evidence about Derek's character and behavior patterns. The sister I had known my entire life was returning, and the family loyalty that Derek had tried to destroy was being rebuilt on a foundation of truth rather than manipulation. That evening, Amanda confronted Derek with the evidence of his affair and deception. According to her later account, Derek initially attempted to deny everything, and then tried to blame me for fabricating evidence and manipulating the situation. But when Amanda presented the photographic proof and Derek's own social media posts, his lies became unsustainable. Derek's response to being exposed revealed his true character in ways that shocked even me. Rather than showing remorse for his betrayal or concern for Emma's well-being, Derek became angry and vindictive, threatening to destroy Amanda financially through a prolonged legal battle, and to seek full custody of Emma by portraying Amanda as an unfit mother who had been influenced by her unstable brother. Derek's threats backfired spectacularly when Amanda recorded the conversation and documented his explicit attempts to use Emma as a weapon in their divorce proceedings. His words revealed a man who saw his daughter not as a person to protect and nurture, but as leverage to be used against anyone who challenged his authority or exposed his misconduct. The following Monday morning, brought an unexpected development that transformed the entire situation. As Amanda and I sat in lawyer Patricia Chen's office preparing divorce papers and custody documents, her assistant knocked on the door with an urgent message. Marcus Martinez, Derek's business partner, was in the lobby requesting an immediate meeting about Derek's conduct and business practices. Marcus entered the office looking exhausted and angry, carrying a briefcase full of financial documents and legal papers. His first words were directed at me. "Henry, I owe you an enormous apology, and I need your help to stop Derek before he destroys more lives." The revelation that followed was staggering in its scope and implications. Marcus explained that Sarah Martinez was his wife, and Derek's affair had been going on under Marcus's nose for nearly a year. But the personal betrayal was only part of Derek's misconduct. He had also been systematically embezzling money from their construction business partnership to fund his affair and maintain his false lifestyle. Marcus had discovered the embezzlement during a routine audit of their business accounts, finding evidence of diverted funds, falsified invoices, and unauthorized expenses that totaled nearly $80,000 over the past year. Derek had been stealing from their partnership while simultaneously lying to Amanda about the business struggling financially. The business fraud connected directly to Derek's use of me as a babysitter. Many of the dates when Derek had requested emergency childcare corresponded with times when he should have been working on legitimate construction projects. Instead of fulfilling his business obligations, Derek had been meeting Sarah while I unknowingly provided the childcare that enabled his theft and infidelity. Marcus's decision to approach us was motivated by more than personal betrayal. He had learned about Derek's false police reports and character assassination campaign against me, and he was horrified by the extent of Derek's willingness to destroy innocent people to protect his own misconduct. Marcus felt personally responsible for not discovering Derek's behavior sooner, and wanted to make amends by helping to expose the truth. But Marcus also offered something even more valuable than vindication: a job opportunity that would rebuild my career and reputation. He was dissolving his partnership with Derek and starting a new marketing consultancy focused on helping small businesses develop effective advertising strategies. Marcus had been impressed by how methodically I had gathered evidence and handled the crisis with Derek, and he wanted to offer me a senior position in his new company. "Henry, your integrity and analytical skills during this nightmare have shown me exactly the kind of person I want to work with," Marcus explained. "Derek tried to destroy you because he knew you were a threat to his lies. I want to hire you because you're exactly the kind of honest professional my business needs." The job offer was substantial: a senior marketing analyst position with a competitive salary, benefits, and the opportunity to help build a company culture based on the transparency and honesty that Derek's behavior had violated. Marcus explained that his new business model would focus specifically on helping companies that had been damaged by unethical competitors or false advertising, making my experience with Derek's deception directly relevant to the work. Amanda was crying as she witnessed this conversation, seeing how the truth about Derek's character was not only vindicating me but actually creating new opportunities for professional and personal growth. The brother-in-law who had tried to destroy my life had inadvertently led to connections and opportunities that might not have existed otherwise. Marcus's final revelation tied everything together in a way that felt like divine justice. Sarah Martinez's affair with Derek had cost her marriage to Marcus, who was filing for divorce and seeking full custody of their 2 children. Sarah was also facing potential criminal charges for her role in helping Derek embezzle business funds, as investigators had discovered that she had assisted in creating falsified invoices and hiding financial transactions. Derek's elaborate scheme to maintain his affair while destroying my reputation had ultimately led to his own downfall in every aspect of his life. His marriage was ending in divorce and custody battle, his business partnership was dissolving amid criminal investigations, his affair partner was facing legal consequences, and his character assassination campaign had been exposed as fraudulent. The irony was perfect. Derek's attempt to deflect attention from his own misconduct by attacking me had actually drawn more scrutiny to his behavior and accelerated the discovery of crimes and betrayals that might have otherwise remained hidden for months or years longer. As we left the lawyer's office that afternoon, Amanda squeezed my hand and apologized for believing Derek's lies about me. "I should have known better," she said. "You've been the most honest person in my life since we were children, and I let Derek manipulate me into doubting you. The healing process for our relationship would take time, but the foundation was solid once again. More importantly, Emma would be protected from Derek's manipulation and raised in an environment where truth and integrity were valued over control and deception. The legal proceedings that followed moved swiftly once Derek's web of lies began unraveling completely. Detective Moore's investigation into his false police reports uncovered additional evidence of fraud and manipulation that extended far beyond his attacks on my character. Derek was arrested on charges including filing false police reports, embezzlement, fraud, and criminal defamation related to his fabricated social media posts. The arraignment was a surreal experience, watching Derek stand before a judge as prosecutors detailed the systematic nature of his deception and manipulation. The man who had once thanked me for saving his family was now facing years in prison for crimes that had emerged from his desperate attempts to maintain his false lifestyle and destroy anyone who threatened to expose the truth. Amanda's divorce proceedings concluded favorably, with Derek agreeing to a settlement that gave Amanda full custody of Emma and required him to pay substantial child support and restitution for the financial damage his deception had caused. Derek's construction business was liquidated to pay debts and legal fees, ensuring that Marcus recovered most of the embezzled funds and that Amanda received compensation for Derek's theft from their joint savings accounts. The custody arrangement included strict limitations on Derek's contact with Emma, requiring supervised visitation and counseling to address the psychological impact of his manipulation and inappropriate exposure of Emma to adult situations during his affair. Child Protective Services conducted a thorough evaluation that confirmed Emma had been psychologically harmed by Derek's use of her as cover for infidelity, and the court mandated therapy to help her process the complex family dynamics she had been subjected to. Emma's resilience throughout this difficult period was remarkable, though it required careful attention to help her understand that the adult's problems were not her responsibility or fault. Amanda and I worked together to create a stable, honest environment where Emma could express her confusion and fears without judgment or pressure to take sides in the adult conflicts. The therapeutic process revealed that Emma had been experiencing anxiety and confusion about the secrets she had been asked to keep and the conflicting messages she received from different adults. Her innocence had been weaponized by Derek in ways that could have caused lasting psychological damage if the truth hadn't emerged when it did. My new position with Marcus's marketing consultancy exceeded every expectation I had for rebuilding my career. The work was challenging and meaningful, focusing on helping small businesses that had been damaged by unethical competitors or false advertising campaigns. My experience with Derek's character assassination proved invaluable in understanding how misinformation spreads and developing strategies to combat false narratives with documented truth. Marcus proved to be an exceptional business partner and friend, committed to running his company with the transparency and integrity that Derek's behavior had violated. Our working relationship was built on mutual respect and shared values, creating a professional environment where I felt valued and trusted in ways that restored my confidence after months of unemployment and character attacks. The business grew rapidly as word spread about our success in helping companies recover from reputation damage and competitive sabotage. My analytical skills and attention to detail, which had been essential in documenting Derek's deception, became valuable assets in helping clients identify and counter false information campaigns directed against their businesses. 6 months after Derek's arrest, the local newspaper published a comprehensive investigative report about false accusations and the importance of due process in addressing allegations of misconduct. The article featured my case as an example of how character assassination campaigns could destroy innocent people's lives and highlighted the police department's improved procedures for investigating competing narratives in domestic disputes. The publicity surrounding the article led to speaking opportunities where I could share my experience with other families dealing with manipulation and false allegations. These presentations became opportunities to educate people about recognizing the warning signs of systematic deception and protecting themselves from character assassination attempts. Derek's affair partner, Sarah Martinez, faced her own consequences as the truth about her role in Derek's embezzlement emerged during the criminal investigation. Her divorce from Marcus was finalized with a settlement that held her financially responsible for the business losses caused by her participation in Derek's fraud. She also lost custody of her children due to her involvement in criminal activities and poor judgment in exposing them to an unstable relationship with Derek. The ripple effects of Derek's behavior extended throughout the community as other people came forward with their own experiences of his manipulation and inappropriate conduct. The investigation revealed that Derek's treatment of me was part of a larger pattern of bullying and character assassination that he had used against anyone who challenged his authority or threatened his false image. Amanda's recovery from Derek's betrayal was gradual but steady, supported by therapy and the relief of finally understanding the true source of the problems in her marriage. She realized that many of the conflicts and stresses she had attributed to financial pressure or work demands had actually been caused by Derek's deception and manipulation. Our sibling relationship was stronger than ever, rebuilt on a foundation of truth and mutual support, rather than the false narratives Derek had tried to create. Amanda often expressed gratitude that I had persisted in documenting the truth despite the personal cost, acknowledging that Emma's well-being had been protected by my refusal to accept Derek's lies without question. Emma thrived in the stable, honest environment that Amanda created after Derek's removal from their daily lives. Her natural curiosity and joy returned, as she no longer carried the burden of keeping adult secrets or navigating the conflicting demands of parents with fundamentally different values. The supervised visits with Derek were eventually suspended entirely when Emma expressed consistent anxiety about spending time with him. The legal system's vindication of my character was complete when Derek pleaded guilty to all charges rather than face trial. His admission of guilt included acknowledgement that his accusations against me had been fabricated and that I had never engaged in any inappropriate or threatening behavior toward him or his family. The most meaningful moment of resolution came when Emma, now 8 years old and thriving in second grade, asked if I would help her with a school project about family heroes. She had chosen to write about how I had protected her family by telling the truth, when it was difficult and dangerous to do so. As I helped Emma organize her thoughts for the project, I realized that the most important lesson from this entire experience wasn't about Derek's character or the importance of documenting truth. The real lesson was about the responsibility we have to protect innocent people, especially children, from adults who would manipulate and harm them for personal gain. Derek's willingness to use Emma as a tool in his deception and to expose her to psychological harm for his own benefit represented the worst aspects of adult selfishness and manipulation. By contrast, the people who had ultimately supported the truth, Amanda, Marcus, Detective Moore, and even strangers who came forward with information, had been motivated by genuine concern for Emma's well-being and safety. The experience taught me that standing up for truth and protecting vulnerable people requires courage and persistence, especially when those in positions of authority are determined to maintain false narratives. But it also demonstrated that integrity and honesty eventually prevail when enough people are willing to speak truth to power and support victims of manipulation and abuse. Looking back on the darkest moments of Derek's campaign against me, I understand now that his attacks were actually confirmation that I posed a genuine threat to his false lifestyle. People who are living honestly don't need to destroy others to protect their reputation. Derek's elaborate character assassination revealed more about his own character than any accusations he made against mine. The broader lesson extends beyond my personal experience to anyone dealing with manipulation, false accusations, or systematic character assassination. The truth has a way of emerging when documented carefully and presented persistently, but it requires courage to continue fighting for justice when the odds seem overwhelming and the personal costs are substantial. Today, Emma is a confident, happy child who understands that adults sometimes make serious mistakes, but that honest people will always work to protect children from harm. She knows that her Uncle Henry fought for her safety and well-being when it would have been easier to walk away, and that lesson about loyalty and protection will shape her understanding of relationships and family throughout her life. Amanda has rebuilt her life around the values of honesty and transparency that Derek's deception violated. She works with other families dealing with manipulation and abuse, using her experience to help parents recognize warning signs and protect their children from people who would exploit family relationships for personal gain. My career has flourished in ways that would never have been possible without the experience of fighting Derek's lies and documenting systematic deception. The skills I developed during that crisis have made me exceptionally effective at helping businesses and individuals counter false narratives and rebuild their reputations after character attacks. Most importantly, our family has emerged stronger and more united than before Derek's manipulation divided us. The shared experience of fighting for truth and protecting Emma created bonds that are unbreakable because they're built on genuine care for each other's well-being rather than convenience or obligation. The ultimate irony is that Derek's attempt to destroy my life actually led to opportunities, relationships, and personal growth that exceeded anything I had experienced before his attacks began. His character assassination campaign backfired so completely that it improved every aspect of my life while destroying his own future in ways he never anticipated. This experience has given me a deep appreciation for the people who stand by truth and justice when it's difficult and costly to do so. Detective Moore, Marcus Martinez, Jake Morrison, and dozens of other people chose to support honesty over convenience, truth over comfort, and justice over avoiding conflict. Their collective courage reminds me that we're never as alone as manipulative people want us to believe. There are always honest people willing to support truth and protect innocent victims, but sometimes we have to persist through dark periods before they emerge and make themselves known. The most profound lesson of this entire experience is that protecting children and vulnerable people from manipulation and abuse is worth any personal sacrifice. Emma's safety and well-being were always more important than my comfort, reputation, or even family relationships. When adults are willing to harm children to protect their own interests, stopping them becomes a moral imperative that transcends personal considerations. Today, when I watch Emma playing happily in the backyard while Amanda tends her garden, I know that every difficult moment of fighting Derek's lies was justified by the peace and security they now enjoy. Truth and justice required persistence and courage, but they ultimately prevailed because enough people cared more about protecting an innocent child than maintaining false peace. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where standing up for what's right meant risking important relationships or facing serious personal consequences? How do we find the courage to protect innocent people when powerful individuals are determined to maintain harmful lies? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and share it with others who might benefit from understanding how manipulation works and how truth ultimately prevails. Subscribe to our channel for more stories about overcoming injustice and finding strength in difficult circumstances. Thank you for taking this journey with me. And remember that your integrity and courage matter more than you might realize. Stay strong, tell the truth, and never stop fighting for the people you love.